All right, so we're looking at thriving in relationships. Of course, we are made to be kings and queens, right? And we're a part of the kingdom. And the biggest thing on the heart of Father is people, whether they're already his sons and daughters or not. And so that's why, of course, relationships are huge, because in the kingdom, the value of people is at the highest level. And not only you being able to be your best and show up as your best in every situation, in every relationship, but bringing the people around you to the next level, empowering them to be their best, is of a great value if you're going to be a king or a queen in the kingdom, because of the way Father values people. And so, we're looking at thriving in relationships, looking at different people's styles and how to empower them. And we'll go through that today. I love interaction. I know there's only, a few of us on here, but if you have questions or comments through the thing, just share, say, whatever, interact. And I'm going to be sharing my screen. So you'll just have to unmute and say something if you want, because I can't see everybody when I'm sharing my screen here. So.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. I normally manage the chat, or you can just unmute. Feel free to ask anything anytime.
Sorry, hold on here. Oops. Do you see the presentation? Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. So first of all, I'd like to start off with, I don't know if any of you guys got the sheet I dropped in there, but we are going to work through that. If you got it, great. If not, it's fine too. But I'd like to start off with having you guys repeat, I am awesome. Maybe you can repeat that with me.
I am awesome.
I am awesome. Ooh, I love that,
You hear
Nick.
that, babe?
Come on.
You hear that,
Come
babe?
on.
I am
awesome.
Have Kaylee say it too. Come on.
Yeah, she is. I'm making sure she is.
Nick's making sure she hears that he's awesome.
Love it. I love it.
And sometimes people are like, should I really be saying that? We talk about, Father God is awesome, but we are made in his image and likeness. So I believe that you are awesome as well. And, Esther and I want you guys to own that awesomeness, to own who you are and to celebrate that. And I know we're talking about relationships and other people here, but it starts off, if you can be confident and secure in yourself, knowing that you are awesome, knowing some of what you bring to the table, you're able to celebrate, to recognize people around you and champion them as well. So it's hard to champion somebody else if you cannot champion yourself, or you're not confident in yourself. So, babe, do you see Cynthia's trying to get in here? All right, cool.
I got it.
I am awesome. So the first question on your worksheet here, it says, my strongest personality type or types are. Here we have the D, the creator, the I, which is the advancer, the S, which is the executor, and the C, which is the refiner. Each person has a total of, one, two, or three of these, which are strong enough that they really impact the way you like to look at the world and operate. And so if you just read down here, the D is decisive, competitive, pioneering, determined, self-assured, direct. You may not, all these words may not speak to you, but if you find a couple of these words speak to you, that's a good chance part of that style is strong enough in your personality that it impacts the way you like to operate. And so you just write down, are you a D? Are you an I? Are you IND? Are you SC? The I is optimistic, verbal, social, enthusiastic, confident, persuasive. The S is relaxed, loyal, consistent, steady, sincere, and a team player. And the C is accurate, calculating, detailed, systematic, fact finder, and then high standards.
Yeah, and even though you can have one that like 2 or 3, there will be one that is pretty much your primary, right. 1 or 2.
Yeah, you have definitely one, sometimes two that are really high. But again, there might be a third one that comes into play here. And do any of you guys want to volunteer where you're at,
Yes.
what you have?
Yeah. Let me see. Let me read those words again. I think I would say I'm an I, and then with a little bit of a D.
Okay, cool.
I don't know. I guess I'll find out more today.
Yes, you will.
Welcome, Cynthia. Anyone else?
So you should resonate with one mostly, and then possibly like a second one. Is that what you're saying?
You definitely resonate with one, but it could be up to maybe a total of three that you say, hey, these are pretty strong in me, or I find these characteristics pretty strong within me. So it could be one, it could be two, could be up to three. So while you think about it, I'll share mine. I'm a high C. I have D next and some S, but my highest is a C. And then I can shift, I operate in D as well, and some S sometimes.
Yeah, I have some S into too.
Cool.
I'd say S,
Disc.
and then yeah, I'm just disc. That's just me.
So
No, I'd say S, and then yeah, maybe a little I.
low I. So when you have some that are high and some that are low, that also impacts the way you operate. So my I is very low, which means verbal communication makes me tired. Like it's not energizing, it's exhausting. Where a Nikki and Esther, who are a high I, they're actually energized by socializing, by verbal communication. Now I try to avoid phone calls when I can. I try to avoid talking to people. I text if I want to communicate. That's more energizing. So you can look at, hey, some of this, if you think about being competitive, that will energize more of the D personality, determined, so that's another way to look at it. Anything in the chat, babe? I see it popping up, but I can't read.
Yes, Celia said I say D and S. So her primary D, S. I said I'm primarily an I, but I have a lot of D and some S.
Cool. All right. So we looked at how, and Cynthia's here. I don't know if she wanted to tell everybody. I know she was on yesterday and shared, but she definitely has some S in there. We've talked about that. So I hope you're okay that I shared that, Cynthia. But next, I want you guys to repeat after me. You are awesome. You are awesome.
You are awesome.
You are awesome.
You are awesome.
You're awesome.
Because, of course, if you're going to value and champion people, we have to approach every person, even if their style is a little frustrating or annoying at times, or doesn't fit the way we want to do things, the way we want to communicate. We need to come with the mindset of you are awesome, that you are also awesome, and you bring strengths and value to the table in whatever style that is. So the three steps, my 3 steps to thriving relationships are: first, recognize, and we're here on the worksheet, recognize, accept, and celebrate. And I want to encourage everybody, when in relationships that are important around you, to work through these 3 steps, to not just recognize, but to accept, to not just stay at accept, but to celebrate. So the meaning of recognize, to recognize someone's personality style is to recognize it. Surprise, surprise. It's to recognize, hey, my wife, my girlfriend, my husband, my friend, my coworkers, the other people on my leadership team, they are, an I personality. They are an S. They have D, whatever. They have C. to recognize it and to highlight that. That way you begin to understand why they communicate the way they communicate, why they do what they do, you know, why they like to talk, because they're energized by it. They're made to advance ideas, or why they are, you know, always coming up with facts and information, because they are an accurate type of personality. So on your worksheet, I said, I think that the personality styles of a few of the important people around me are. So think of a couple of the important people around you, or the important relationships, and look at these terms here and just try to figure out what style you think they are. You know, are they the D, decisive, competitive? They're talking language of do it, you know, do it. Are they an I? They're optimistic and verbal, social, and they will speak more. You can do it. You can do it. They're always encouraging you, telling you can do it. Are they the S, where they're relaxed and loyal, and they're saying we can do it. Let's do it together. Let's be a team. Let's be a unit. Let's be connected. Let's be like family. Or are they talking in light of the C, and they're accurate and systematic, and they're saying let's do it right. So if you listen to me talk a lot, I'm talking about how can we do it right? What's going to be accurate? What is going to come into play? So the D's and the I's, they're about talking quick, taking quick action, making quick decisions. The C and the S's, they want some time. They want some time to think. They want some time to decide. They want some time to process. The D and the C, they're all about tasks. What are we doing? What are, you know, or what are we accomplishing? And the I and the S, they're looking at people. How are we connecting? How are we doing things together? How are we building people? Can you guys see that Zoom line on my screen yet? Or is that hidden from you guys? Okay. It still says Cynthia's waiting to enter. Okay.
No.
So do you guys have a couple names down? Krista, did you figure out some people around you?
So are we attaching people to the different categories now?
Yes, if you want to. I'm trying to give you guys actionable things so you can actually pick names of people that are close to you that, you know, are important, whether it's coworkers or whatever, and say, okay, hey, this is the style I think they are. So for us, our oldest daughter, Alethea, she's a D with some I and some C in there. Our second, she's definitely high S with a little bit of I. And again, the reason we recognize is because we communicate differently to them, which brings out the best in them and helps them to bring their best to the relationship. Our third, Brian, is a high I with some S. He likes to be recognized. He's playing soccer. He likes everyone to cheer for him, shout his name. When he scores a goal, he's doing a celebration, copying Cristiano Ronaldo and whatever else. When I played sports, I didn't want people to come. I didn't want them to cheer for me. I just wanted to do my thing. Don't put me on the spot. Do not highlight me. I don't want a birthday party because I don't want to be the center of attention. Well, Brian, he loves being the center of attention. He's okay with that. And Benji, our youngest, he's a D and I, and he's in for the party all the time. He's everybody's friend, no matter where we go. He's like talking to everyone. It's like, this is great, man. The more people, the merrier. So. The next, we move from recognize to accepting. Accepting means to allow. Again, if you guys have any thoughts or questions, please just interrupt me here. So we don't want to. Yeah, go, Krista.
So I had a question. So what would you say are, when we just talk about the recognize, like what are some keys in recognizing someone's personality type, what would you say are some pointers or just some techniques you can use or whatever? Yeah, like
Yeah.
is it just the most obvious thing you see, or yeah, what are you related to?
Sure. So again, personality is not to put you or anyone else in a box, but it's just saying, hey, this is one of the ways they like to operate. And for the recognizing step, it's mainly for you as an individual to kind of understand where that person is coming from. You know, what style they're trying to communicate in, what motivates them, how do they view the world and process things. And so just some of the terms I put here, when I approach new relationships, or I'm in business and I'm approaching the client or whatever, I'm looking for some of these terms. I'm looking for, they may mention, how can we get this right? Or how can we be accurate? Or they might be super talkative and verbal and excited and optimistic. So I'm finding, okay, that might be an I personality. You know, they're very direct, talking about the bottom line. That would be a D. And so recognizing just starts with you as an individual, kind of picking out what you feel that person is in the way they like to communicate and operate. Does that answer your question, or were you hoping some more for something different from that?
No, a little bit. I think, yeah. Would you say it's in general easy to just pinpoint someone's personality like that, or because I could imagine that, yeah, you could look at someone and have a certain idea of that person, but they themselves would actually tell you something totally different.
Right. Yeah. You could be. So, you know, I wouldn't draw a hard line in the sand, like this is exactly who they are, but I would try to, and we'll talk about a little later, about mirroring their style. So the type of language they're using, I would kind of mirror that style back, because that's going to have them connect to you the easiest, build trust and connection with you, and move forward from there. So it's not like putting them in the box and saying this is who they are and they can't come out of that, but it's just, you know, you deal with the personalities, whether you recognize it or not, whether you're intentional about seeing who they are. So, you know, you could, hey, you know, Esther and I start dating, we get married, she's all fun and verbal and whatever. Well, after, it can either be something positive or it could be a frustration, you know? And if I'm not intentional about looking at this relationship and this person and saying, how are they trying to communicate? What's their style? I either just live in the spot where it's frustrating and I put up with it, or I don't know why this person does what they do, you know? I talk to a lot of married couples and they're like, I feel like my husband's trying to hijack our life all the time, because, you know, I'm trying to have fun and let's go here. And he's like, well, what about, how much is that going to cost? You know, we need to put that money somewhere else. Well, that would be more who I am, because of the high C personality. I'm looking at everything in resources. How do we eliminate loss? And so just being intentional to recognize and moving from, okay, this person is frustrating me or annoying me, or, you know, just out to get me, to, hey, this is actually their style and part of the strength they're bringing, and to embrace it that way. Does that help?
Yeah.
What really helped me too is to know that there's people that are task focused and then there are people that are people focused. I myself, I'm people focused. So I'm more about connection and, you know, time with people and all that. Where all of a sudden when I understood this, I was like, oh my word, certain things with certain people has nothing to do with me. They're just focused on their task, and that is what motivates them. But it doesn't mean they like me less. They don't want to spend time with me. They don't, you know what I mean? But that is just how they are wired. That was huge for me because I fear social rejection. So I immediately sometimes feel like, oh, people don't want to spend the time with me, or they don't want that connection, just different things all through my life. Of course, we learn, and we get, we learn spiritually, but naturally, to know those things and understand it about yourself, but also about other people, that all of a sudden I was like, oh my word, in my marriage with Jason, all of a sudden I didn't take offense about certain things, because I just knew that is how he thinks and that is how he processes things, and it has nothing to do with me. That was like a huge pressure off of my shoulder, just to know, okay, certain people take more time, certain ones are more faster, task focused, people focused, those type of things that really helped me.
Yeah. So like us using that example of, if someone doesn't call or doesn't check in or doesn't come to hang out, it's like, what did I do wrong? Well, those of us who are task focused, I value you, but I only communicate or connect to you if you're involved in the task naturally. And so it's like, well, I was busy doing all this stuff, and so communicating to someone else or connecting with someone else doesn't really come on my radar when I'm busy with tasks, and that balance, and vice versa. One person can be like, why does Esther always want to call, or why does she always want to drop for some coffee? I'm trying to get work done, Well, her value is in communicating with people, connecting with people, things like that. Good. So moving from you personally being proactive in recognizing people to accepting them. And in my opinion, to accept someone's personality style means to allow it. It's not you're always trying to shut them down. Okay, so we took one step above recognizing. It's like, this person is a D style. And so instead of always trying to shut down what they're doing and things, you allow them to have space to create, to be a problem solver, to move forward. Now, you guys may have heard of the word rapport. It's more than just building trust. It's building a deep connection, which involves a lot of trust. And an acronym for that, and you can see on your sheet, you can write it on your sheet if you want. Really, all people prefer others reflecting themselves. Again, to build rapport, really all people prefer others reflecting themselves. So what you want to realize is, when I meet you, when I come to you, Christo, you're going to want to communicate in your style what you value. So if it's, or, if you say you're S, Christo, you'll be talking about a team. How do we do it together? How do we be closer? In the I, what's going to be fun? And how do we advance these ideas? How do we move forward? Well, if I come and do what I do naturally and communicate in my style, and I say, well, do we have all the facts? Do you know all the numbers? Do we have all the details figured out? You will want to shut down. That doesn't build rapport. That doesn't build connection. So when I approach you, I actually want to try to reflect your style at first, and value you so you feel valued. And then in turn, hopefully you value me as well, my style, and we can be more of a complete picture. Because of course the kingdom is about what? Collaboration. And so we need each other's strengths in order to bring the complete picture. But it's important that to understand that people prefer you reflecting them. So in light of that, you had your names from the list above of what personality styles you guessed. Maybe Nikki's guessing what Kaylee's style is, and her kid and his kids, and whatever. You have that list. So the next list is list the best and worst ways to communicate to each person listed above. So again, take the names from the list above, drop them down here, and we're going to look at some do's and don'ts for motivating communication. If you have the S personality style, the executor, you want to be patient and friendly when you communicate. You want to talk about how you're going to do things. You know, they like step-by-step instructions. Some people are like, well, I have a project and I didn't want to step on their toes or shut them down. So I just gave the whole project and I said, figure it out. Well, if you gave it to an S personality, you just overwhelmed them, melted them down, and they're not able to create in their style because you overwhelmed them. They prefer you to come and say, do step A and maybe step B. Don't give too many steps. Give me one project at a time and explain how to do it. Give sincere appreciation for who that person is and what they did. Present changes in a non-threatening way, giving information and allowing time for adjustment. All right, so sudden change in where we're going, a sudden change in what we're doing, a sudden change in plans. Even for me with Nikita, a sudden change in direction in the car when we're going somewhere. Here in California, you have to do a U-turn to get on the other side of the road to turn into the park or wherever you're going. When I make that U-turn, suddenly I'll hear from the back seat, why are we turning around? Why are we changing directions? What's happening? And I used to brush it off and say, hey, just let me work it out. Let me focus and work it out. But I realized I need to share a little information because that change throws her out of her place of, you know, her best space, out of being her best self. And so I need to communicate a little bit and say, hey, well, we actually have to U-turn so we can get on the other side. We didn't go wrong. We're not going somewhere else. We just needed to go here. Or if we did need to go somewhere else, explain it a little bit, because that will make her secure and she can be her best self in the relationship. Give them feedback. Give clear expectations and plans up front. Because they value, they're the family people, the team people. And so they're trying to create connection and they want to know what your expectation is for them up front so they can meet that expectation. Express a genuine interest in them as a person. All right, and when changes need to happen or when interpersonal challenges are involved, highlight how changes will create a better team environment. So they don't necessarily like change, they don't like sudden changes, but sometimes change is necessary. So if you talk about how it will make things more secure, how it will make a better team environment, how together we can do it better or be together more, that's going to motivate them to make the changes. And a little bit of the do nots. Do not be confrontational or pushy, aggressive, or demanding. So I used this example yesterday when I did this with Nikita when she was younger. If she was out of line and she needed a discipline, we'd take the wooden spoon out and just hold it in the air and she would like melt, man. It was over. There's no discipline needed. It was just that confrontation breaks them down. They're like, I'm done. I know I was wrong. I'm sorry.
Can you change your kids to an S?
Well, that's Alethea. When she was younger and we get some discipline, man, you could go crack, crack, and she'd just sit there and smile at you and be like, whatever. She's the high D. You're not going to, I don't care.
Yeah,
Nikita,
she didn't
you just
care.
wave it in the air and it would be. Any questions on the S? Thoughts on the S besides, can you change your kid?
Not specifically on the S from me, but I was just wondering when you mentioned about approaching people and finding a way to connect with them. To what extent would you say? So you're approaching them in how they want to be approached. How far should you go in that without becoming disingenuous to yourself?
Sure. My approach is I always want to add dignity and honor to that person and value that person and set them up. But then when I come to wanting to operate or being able to live life or carry out my role in the relationship, whatever that is, then I want to do it in my style because I know I'll be able to create the best and perform the best in that. So mainly what I'm trying to do is when I approach someone, build that trust, that rapport, that connection, so that they can realize now when I shift and I come from my point of view, it's for the good of both of us, not to derail them or take them out and try to change them or change the relationship. So I wouldn't want to live my life outside of my my style, shaping it for everyone else, but just that initial connection. And even now, like with Esther, and we'll talk about that a little more later, but when I come in or I come to approach her, I need to be conscious and try to talk in her style. And then she responds because she values our relationship in my style, and to try to communicate a little more on each other's level when we're trying to bring understanding, but then she also values, hey, Jason, what do you have to say in light of being accurate in details and information? So it's kind of both, showing love by communicating to her in a certain way, talking about fun sometimes, but then knowing that I can bring my piece to our relationship. So does that help?
Yeah, I really think it's just and I don't always do this consciously, even though I know some of this stuff. But the more you know and understand this and learn this, it becomes like, second nature. But it really is just creating that space where both you and the other person can be their best, where you start off in their style, but not to then eventually change them, but to highlight their strengths so that there's also space for you to be who you are, because ultimately we all should walk authentically to our own, who Yahweh created us to be. But that's what I feel this does. It creates space just as much for each party to be their best self.
Can I share something, Jason?
Sure, Cynthia.
Hey, Crystal, that was my exact same question on yesterday. It's like, how do you allow somebody to be who they are and you not being true to yourself? And so my example that I used yesterday was a friend of mine that I'm an S primarily, and I'm not exactly sure what she is, but she likes to talk a heck of a lot. And I don't really want to hear it a lot of times, but she's my friend. And so I feel like, we've been through a lot together, but she'll call and she just wants to catch up and tell me all about her life. And I care, but I don't want to hear it. I just don't want to hear it. And so, and then sometimes, she would want to gossip and she'd want to do things. And prior times or seasons in my life, I was more of a people pleaser, but as being an S, it has its own thing, because you want to protect the relationship. You want her to still be your friend. You want to not listen. You don't want to not be a friend. So it was becoming where I felt like I don't want to talk to her. Because I felt like she was imposing upon me. And so what you have to do, or at least what I had to learn to do, is you have to have boundaries. And you have to have boundaries for yourself. Know who you are, know what you can take, know what you want, know what you don't want, which has not always been, I knew it, but I just didn't put it in place. So I'm taking baby steps with this one relationship because she is a good friend. And I put boundaries on it without even saying anything to her. I just know that she can go on for hours. And I, we've got disconnected, and I've messaged her and it's 30 minutes later, literally, and she is still talking. She did not even realize that I was gone. And so that tells me you don't care whether I'm here or not. You just need my ear. And so I have to place boundaries in place. Like if I'm going to call her and I feel like I want to listen because I'm really not saying a lot, I'll call her knowing that I have a Zoom call in 45 minutes. And so I know I'll have to go. Or sometimes I just flat don't answer the phone and I'm okay with that. Or sometimes like today she called, no, actually I sent her a text. And this is bad because I send the text in the hopes that you will not call me. And so I worded in such a way that hopefully you are not going to call me. And so when she does call me, it's like, doggone it, you know. And so today I did answer the phone, but I talked as long as I could, and you know, which I felt I wasn't, you know, going across my own boundary. And I just say, hey, listen, I gotta go. And I found that she is really okay with that. You know, she just wants to talk when she wants to talk, and if I don't want to talk, I'm just like, I still have to be her friend. But again, Chris, I understand what you were saying. You still have to put those boundaries in place, and I feel more empowered. I don't feel like, because she's not taking advantage, but I will feel that because what is it, disrespected my own boundary. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So I wouldn't want to live my whole life out here. Again, it's just connecting to the person, adding value to the person so they can be their best, and then being able to transition over into your strength and style and add that to the relationship as well. You know, if you're working for somebody and they just cannot accept what you bring to the table and your strength, and you always feel this pressure to be someone else or something else, you may want to find another place to work, you know, because you actually be in this place of internal survival where your energy is drained and you're fighting to be who you feel you are, and so and to keep that intact, even though there's pressure to be something else. And then all of that mental and emotional energy you carry each day is consumed with surviving in that space rather than creating in the way you create. So I create information, I create details, I create strategy. You know, the I personalities, Esther and Nikki, for example, they create advancement of ideas. They can create communication, they create flow. The D's create action, they create vision. And the S's create team and connection and execute on things. So we all have different types of we create in different ways, not necessarily creativity. And you're either using your energy to survive or you're using your energy to create, which ultimately energizes you more. And so that's why I encourage people, as you figure out who you are and other people are, you stay in your space as much as possible and you propel that person and honor that person in their style. And you're both, you know, bringing your best to the table.
Yeah, I like, well, how I would like to think of it is these see it as like a language, like a language that's a tool in my bag that now I can approach somebody, ask them something, but I want to create rapport with them. I want to create a connection with them. So I approach them in their own language. So now I'm building something that doesn't do anything away from who I am and what language I speak. And when I go, I'm using it as a tool to connect. I'm using it as a tool to create friendship, to build something. So therefore I go and travel out there, speak that language, then yeah, and as you make that connection, obviously they also start realizing who you are, you know, what kind of works with you. And I think it's real. I would really want to see it as a tool rather than as in something who I am. I'm not switching necessarily who I am, but I'm using it.
Yeah, no, that's a good explanation, Nick, for sure. And you know, we're ultimately influencers as kingdom ambassadors, right? And as you come to leaders in whatever sphere or field you have influence, you have to be able to get their ear. And if you can't get their ear by building that rapport, so you can release whatever solution, whatever Father has spoken to you, whatever idea you have, you know, you're going to be left with all this potential, but not the ear of the king or the influencer to hear it. And so that's not only in your personal relationships, but as you go out. So is there anything in the chat, babe, that I need to highlight before I move on to the C? Okay, next. If you found some of the people in your life or the relationships that are important to you are the C, the refiner, be factual and not emotional. All right, so talk about facts, not about emotion. Give precise explanations of expectation and requirements. So you'll find any of you you've ever done any public speaking or had a group of people and you say, who's with me? We're gonna, you know, there's some in the group the S and the C's, their hand will be like, oh, what are you asking of me? I need time to, give me extra. The I's and the D's are like, whoa, I don't care what you may not even said it yet. I'm in, I'm with you. The other guys are like, wait, what's your expectation here? I don't know if I'm going to volunteer. So I'll sit in a meeting and something will come up, in a leadership meeting. Who wants to volunteer for this? So I'm sitting thinking, well, what is it that you actually want? How am I going to, what is my accurate mark to hit this? So before I get the details, I'm not going to volunteer. So disagree with the facts rather than the person. If you always are disagreeing with the person and their C personality, they are going to feel super bad. So disagree with the facts and the information rather than attacking the person. Attacking, even if you're not attacking and being rude, but if you're saying, yeah, I don't agree with you, I don't agree with you, you begin to push that person down. It's better to say, I don't agree with that information, I don't agree with that point, rather than with the person themselves. Be specific when explaining. Present the pros and cons. Be friendly. Support your ideas with accurate information. And when interpersonal challenges are involved, when change is needed, highlight how changes will bring about excellent and accurate results. Because remember, the C, the refiners focused on results or on the task, and they want excellence in that, and they want to be accurate. So if you speak, we'll be able to do this better, it will save us money, it will be a more excellent product, they are willing to make the changes. Do not be overly critical, emotional, confrontational, or vague. They don't understand any of that type of language or communication very well at all. So again, if you continue to come and say, hey, you're wrong, hey, you're doing this wrong, hey, you got to change that, you have to realize that the internal makeup of the C is they're working very hard to get everything right all of the time. And the more you come and tell that person they're wrong, they're doing it wrong, they're bad, whatever, you're only compounding the internal pressure they put on themselves. And they're very factual. So people come and say, oh, I feel this or that. I have to be intentional to think about feelings, but I don't necessarily, feelings aren't a normal thing. The emotions, I have emotions obviously, but it's not for a C personality. They don't really talk about it.
You do, baby.
Maybe somewhere in some box. I might borrow yours. I don't know.
I got lots.
Any questions? Oh, sorry. Any questions on the C refiner? No. All right. The advancer, the I's. Be friendly. I think I have something in the way there. Be friendly and light. So as you can see, all three of these like friendly environments. The D likes antagonistic, challenging environments because they're built as the ones who like to push through and find a way, but everyone else likes friendly environments. So if you're a D personality, you'll want to try to be less confrontational and strong when you're trying to communicate to those you are leading, or else they may run away or react. Focus on experiences, communicate in light of experiences, how this will feel, how it will be fun, this will be great. Compliment them on accomplishments. Speak about feelings. Allow them to speak. Avoid too many facts. So for all you I's, you may already be like, whoa, this is a lot of information that I have to listen to. Avoid the too many facts. When interpersonal challenges or changes are needed, highlight how they can be recognized, how it will be fun, how it will create a better environment, a better experience, and they'll be in for the change. When it's something that they necessarily don't like to do. So I used the example yesterday for Esther. She may decide that she has to put up more of a schedule and a structure to some of the work she has to do, detailed work. Details are not her thing. Structure and schedule is not her thing. She likes to flow, be spontaneous. But if if we talk about, all right, this will create a better environment, a more friendly environment, you'll be able to connect to more people. That type of language will motivate her to make the changes or do the stuff that's not fun in order to get to those results. And do not do all the talking. Do not ignore what they are saying or focus too much on detailed information. So that's another thing I had to learn, because I like to think about the question before I answered. S will say something, I'll start thinking about the question, and I'm on this whole journey figuring it out, and she's waiting for a response, and she feels like I'm ignoring what she's saying. So I learned I just have to at least respond, not give the answer, but at least try to respond so she knows that I'm not ignoring what she's saying, and move on, because they do not like, they're made to communicate, and they do not like if you're ignoring what they're saying.
And me, I have learned to then, if he doesn't even respond, to say, hey, you don't have to give me the answer now, but can you at least, like, you know, where are you
Acknowledge
at in
that you
the
heard my question,
process?
right.
Or, you know, where before I would be like, hello, I would be more like, let's get going. I mean, I'm standing here, got 110,000 things to do. I need an answer like right now. I would just push all the time, you know, where now I understand, okay, he's probably already on step 3 or 5. I just need to know where he's at in the process. And I know the answer will come. You know?
Thoughts or questions on the I, the advancer? Good. All right, then for the D, the creator, motivating communication is be brief and direct. All right, talk about the what. So the S, you're talking about the how. When you're talking to a D, if you talk about how are we going to do that, it's going to frustrate them. So you talk about what are we doing. All right. They're visionaries. They've seen the big picture. If you try to break it down to the next step, you lost that person. Talk about problem solving, not about the problem, about how you're going to solve the problem, because they're always looking for solutions. Talk about getting results, about them being able to be in charge, make decisions. When challenges are involved or change is needed, highlight how change will produce more results. All right, so if you need to change something, and I'm coming to a D who's running the company, I'm going to talk about how there will be more results from this, not how it will be fun, not how it will be a better team, not how we will get things right or a better product. No, we want to talk about more results, more bottom line, more income, more cash flow, getting things done. That's what they look for. Do not generalize, okay? So my kids, if I say, you guys are making a mess everywhere all the time, the D, Alethea, will be like, that wasn't me. And we always say, well, if the shoe doesn't fit, you know, if the shoe fits, wear it. And if it doesn't, don't. But she gets highly offended because you're generalizing and you're involving me in this, even though it's not me. And we're like, well, if it's not you, don't worry about it. Yeah, but you can't generalize. They feel like they're being taken advantage of. They're having lost a choice when you group them into that. So don't generalize. Don't ramble or repeat yourself. And don't make unsupported statements. Again, if you don't have facts, I'll use Alethea again. If we come and say, hey, the other day, this wasn't done properly. Well, what do you mean? Well, what day was it? Well, it was the other day. Yeah, what do you mean? You know, you need specific supported statements. You can't just come and make a general statement. So.
Or you can't talk out of your feelings either, or your knowing. Like, I just know that you didn't do that. Not right, not necessarily a physical thing that I can explain, but I just know, well, that's not going to go over well because you have no proof. You have no thing to support yourself. So all the things you're saying doesn't mean a thing, you know?
Yeah. And with them,
so so in communication, obviously there's also some opposites, like are like D and I opposite, or S and C opposite? How does it work like that or not?
Yeah. you'll see that, and
Yeah.
boom.
So like that, okay.
Yeah. So this is
So,
in here, so you realize where you are, and then where the people are that you mark down. The ones that are going to be across are going to be the most challenging or need the most work and focus. So if you have, let's say, the D and the S, the D is very driving, they're about getting results, they're quick. The S likes time, they like to think, they like steady, they don't like change. They like to take one thing at a time. The D is very visionary, big picture, forceful, so those are two opposites. And if you're leading people as a D and you're leading people who are S's, and you're always talking about, this is new and this is change and we're going to do this different and we're going to do that, all the S's are like, whoa, this is completely opposite to the way I try to operate and live and see the world. So this is where you'll see the difference. And a lot of times, not always, but they say with couples and relationships, marriage, opposites attract. This is a lot of times where you find opposites attract, because it's not always complete opposites, but it can be. What happens is the other style shows you a different part of the world of life that you don't process yourself. So I'm a C. Esther, we meet, she's showing me fun, friendly, whatever. I experience a different space that I don't live in. And so, obviously God was in the picture, but anyway, you're attracted, you're together. But what happens then, after a while, the other person begins to frustrate you because of their difference. And then you try to change that person to be like you. And my encouragement is we want to go recognize, accept, and then celebrate. And we'll get into that now, where you actually pull on the strength of that person. You allow them to be your best, you be your best, and you make a complete picture here. Whether it's in marriage, a team, in ministry, whatever it is, in business, that you do that. So again, here you can just see, if you're an I, the C's are going to be the most difficult for you to communicate and work with, or the most challenging, or need the most focus. And you'll hear the C will say things like, I think. The I will say things, I feel. You'll hear that type of language come up. Any other questions? All right. On your worksheet, to celebrate someone's personality style means to pull on. That's my definition of celebrate. So you're recognizing who the people around you are. Okay, this is kind of their style, the way they communicate. You're allowing them to express it, but you're not just like, okay, you're an I, you do your thing, but you're annoying. Or you're an I, you do your thing, but you just exist there. Let's take the next step to celebrate, where I say, you're an advancer, you're an I personality, your verbal communication, your ideas, your change and spontaneity and optimism. Let me pull on that. Let me say, okay, where can I put you in the best space to communicate, to verbalize, to advance ideas? And so here we get to our list again, the same names you put up at the top, where you began to recognize what style they are, the best way to communicate them. Now you can put their name and say, what strength can I begin to pull on? How can I celebrate them by using that strength? So Esther and I in marriage, she's the fun one. I'm the practical resource one. So we go back and forth. I need to use her ability to have ideas for fun, for being social, connecting with people, building relationships like that. And then she also pulls on my strength to say, okay, how are we going to organize our detail, our information? How are we going to be strategic in our trip, in our moving, in our finances, and so on? So if you look at your people, how can you pull on some of their strengths, or what are some strengths that you can begin to utilize? is just think for yourself personally, what doesn't it feel good when you have this thing inside, you know what you can do, and someone recognizes that and actually utilizes that skill set, and they're like, hey man, you whatever, you're accurate, you can get us great information, you're systematic, do that for us, you know. I want to utilize that. I mean, to me that feels good. Or you're a natural born leader, you're directive and decisive, you can figure out the problem, here, go and do it. Then just an example with our kids, Alethea's the D. We would take chores and say, hey, do this and do it this way. She would get super frustrated. She's like, just give me my list of 5-10 chores. Because they're a problem solver, they're want to decide and be decisive. She would figure out how she's going to do it, what order she's going to do it in, the best way to get it done. And all she wants to know is when she brings you, that she's bringing you the result that you want. So as long as it's getting clean, you know, the dishes are getting clean, don't come and try to tell her how to clean them. She's looking at the result. Well, Nikita, then we would do the same for her. Here's your list of 5 items. She would get overwhelmed, and soon something that would take half an hour, she would turn into a whole day because she doesn't process it that way. So in turn, we had to go pull on her strength and say, all right, here, do step 1, you know, clean your desk, then come and talk to me. Then clean your closet, come and talk to me, and break it down. And again, that's highlighting and celebrating their space there. Thoughts or questions?
I have one
So-
question.
Oh, go ahead.
So talking about the opposites, you mentioned with you and Esther that I and C opposite connection. I was just wondering, what would you describe, if possible, the opposite of the D and the S? What dynamics you can expect in that?
Sure. S, do you want to go first? Do you want to say anything? Do you want a chance to talk?
Well, can you pull up the way you said the do's and the do nots?
Okay.
I think that's really clear in
Yes.
how to.
So some of the things, the D is going to
So I think the main things is that, again, the task and people versus people, and the quick and the time. So, you know, the S needs time to process, but is more people focused. The D is for results and quick results. They're motivated by things happening, things moving, and, you know, all of that. So, like, for instance, I have to think of when I married Jason, and I married into his family, you know, and his sister has Stan, which he's a high D, and I am a high I. And his dad has definitely some D, but they are mostly, his mom, his sister are S, like big S, you know, have some I, some C. So we like deciding to go to a restaurant. It's always like, well, where would you like to go? Well, what would you like to eat? And Stan and I, after like 20 minutes,
hold on, babe.
Yeah,
Stan is my brother-in-law.
Yeah, Stan is his sister's husband. We are the outlaws or the in-laws of the family. And we would be like in the beginning, I was like, oh my word, this is just taking forever. Can we just make a decision, you know? Like, so most of the time it's him or I that decide. But now we kind of know that about each other. So we kind of like, you know, they really don't care. They really thrive more if we are the ones being able to lead. Right. Because they don't want to. They don't want to make the decision. They don't want that pressure. They don't want all of that.
Yeah. So the S wants to make sure everyone's opinion is heard and valued, and they prefer to decide as a group, they don't really want to say, where the D wants to be able to be decisive and make decisions. So they kind of live to be the decision maker, and that's where you'll find, definitely that's one spot you'll find the difference, is the D will be strong making decisions. The S wants to make sure everyone has a voice and not one person making all the decisions. So that's where there will be a difference there. And then definitely the D will live for change. So they like things to change, not the same rhythm, not the same thing all the time, where the S prefers, you know, a little more consistency. That will also be a difference. The D will communicate strongly and be confrontational, but they aren't being negative toward the person. They're just being aggressive toward a solution in the situation. But the S can feel that as a personal attack. And I don't know if you've ever know any Ds, you've been in a meeting, they've come hard and strong. We need to change. This is wrong. We need to do this, whatever. And you walk out and you're like, everyone else is, whoa, what did we do wrong? And they're like, what are you talking about? And they're all happy and relaxed. You were in there, you were so aggressive and you were so whatever. And well, they're approaching the result or the problem solving aggressively, but it has no emotional connection to them. So they aren't attacking you. They're attacking the situation and the result, trying to push through to bring a solution. But to other people, especially like an S who's focused on people, what people need and being sincere, it can feel like a personal attack. And so that will also be a difference. The D could find the S too slow in deciding to, what else, babe? Do you want to highlight anything else?
Yeah, decision making. So it's funny because I do actually, the more I learn about myself, I learn that I have more S than I would like to admit or would like to, you know, recognize in myself. But especially I found out that when I am under stress or I feel overwhelmed, I act like an S. And so in my own family with Jason, kids and whatever, with the kids, I'm very much D. I'm a driver. I'm a, you know, with Jason and me in our relationship, I can obviously be who I am. So I'm an I. But under stress, I want Jason just to make the decisions, be the leader. I don't want to have to make the decision. I don't want to have to figure it out, you know. Now I can come up with like ideas, but I don't want to figure out the 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever, you know. That pressure of doing it right or maybe being wrong or whatever, then, you know. So that's funny because I learned that about myself that I didn't do or didn't know, and I'm not there yet because I still sometimes view that as a negative, where that's actually not a negative. That's where my need for connection with people comes from. That's the S in me, that I value connection. So I need to see how, but obviously that just comes from life and you need to, you know, you get healed from things. And so I know that when I still view that as a negative, there's something about it that still I need to just receive some more whatever.
Yeah, because you'll find from past experience, a lot of people I talk to, they find that their style or who they were, because you heard a lot, well, to be successful, you have to be this, or this doesn't fit in our picture or whatever. They felt bad about their true style. And that's where Esther is saying that the S side of her, she felt bad about it. But there's none of these styles are better than the other one. And so just being able to fully embrace and say, okay, this is actually who I am and who the people are around me. So there was one other thing I wanted to highlight with that, but I forget. what it is. So
Did that help at all?
Did that help at all, Krista?
Yes, big time.
And of course, like with people, there can easily be a mixture of a couple styles. So say, if you're talking about yourself, you could be an SI. And so the D will see a lot of big picture, talk a lot of vision, which can get a little overwhelming for the S at times. But if you have some I there, you could also be that idea person or see the big picture, or vice versa. Somebody can cross over. So Nick, do you still remember your question?
Not really, but it was Krista. No, I think my wife's a high D. It takes a lot of work to communicate. I think the most important thing for them is to give them space to allow them to, at least that's what I found it works for me, right? In my communication with her is to give her space to have her, because obviously she's very much directive, very much driving, very much so obviously her brain, realizing her brain works different than mine. But if I can give her space to have all those thoughts, again, I think these are all like tools. If I learn her language, how she thinks, and after I have to think, 18 years together, I'm slowly getting there. I'm not nowhere. I mean, if we fight about anything, right, it's about, but you don't understand how I think, right? As in, don't you understand, right? Don't you see the process? But to give space for that, although I might see it differently, or I might have a different opinion about that, or and obviously in our family dynamics, I make a lot of the choices or decisions eventually, but to give space to her to voice into that, her opinions, her thoughts, and her her directiveness and all that stuff, that just makes a whole lot of difference.
Yeah,
because they need to be heard. They need to think or experience that their voice makes a difference.
Yeah, that's true. So
the freedom, right? The big thing is freedom. And what was that you didn't touch on that at all, like the fears?
no, because that was in one of the other.
Oh, that's another one. Okay, yeah, gotcha.
We're not getting that one.
The big thing of the D is being able to be decisive, make decisions. So the S, which is the opposite, doesn't want to make decisions for everybody, but they want to be involved in the decision making because they want to do it together, because they want to feel valued in that. So where the D needs space to just decide, the S would want to be included and at least make sure their voice is heard and the decision made kind of together. So that's just ways to bring people in and value those different types.
Yeah. Now I remember my question again, if I have time for that. I know we're talking about relationships here, but would you say that even though you recognizing who you are, there are to become successful, you should venture out in the different areas and get some or educate yourself, or train yourself to get some different traits, so that you as a person, as a whole, become more successful. For example, if I want to be successful in my business, I will need to get a bunch of traits from different areas that I might not personally lean towards, but me going over there, learning how to do it, and forcing myself to be, or not be that, but do those things, makes me more successful in my doing. How do you see that?
Yeah. So in one of the other sessions where we were building up, first recognizing yourself, then thriving in the style and so on. To me, you can either use your personality as kind of a rocket that propels you forward or a fortress that you hide in. And so I say, I would want to spend 90% of my time within my style or creating an environment within my style because I can produce my best. But in order to grow, personal growth or to have more impact, sometimes I need to expand outside of that. And, I'm not going to be surprised, and I want to challenge everyone else not to be surprised if Father uses you to impact an area that's not your strength. So I won't be surprised if there's impact and success in a certain format with me communicating verbally, although that's very low in my personality style. So I'll talk now because I know I can have impact by teaching more people. So those are two reasons. The flip side is the more time you spend in those other areas, you develop very slowly and it drains your energy. And so, yeah, I would put myself in situations periodically to stretch, to grow and have more impact. But I would try to bring other people or systems in place to accommodate what I'm lacking in order for, if I'm a high C, when I get off this, if I talked yesterday in a training session like this and I talk today, I'm not really going to want to do any work. I'll be tired tomorrow. I'll be tired today and tired tomorrow, which means I can't even collect facts and information and bring details, which I'm very good at and which normally energizes me. So I would be unproductive for like the next couple hours or whatever. And so it's better for me to bring other people in play and collaborate or create a system around that so that I don't need to continually go over there and drain my energy. So that's my point of view. I believe Father gave us these that at least put the people say, well, it's in your DNA and it's experience that created this personality. But I did not decide what family I was born to. I did not decide what birth order, and I did not decide what culture I was put in. And so I believe that's part of the sovereignty of Father also created this personality within me as a tool to walk in my purpose. And so these strengths should be highlighted. And when I'm energized and working in this space that propels me forward, I'm actually, fully living my life and periodically stepping out. But yeah, again, bringing people, bringing in a Nikki or an Esther to say, hey, I'm not very verbal. So for me to advance ideas, it's better to get somebody else to do that as much as possible.
Yeah,
you guys could disagree with that and give me another point of view, but that's kind of how I see and process.
Right, and I think too, like we've learned in the past, it was more the thing of like focus on your weaknesses or your constraints so you can make them better. But then you're always in that space where you're actually not created for, or you're not wired for that. And the more I'm just walking with my Father, who is a good Father, who has created me like this with these things, that if I can be my best, I am always going to need you because I'm not you. And he has us created for each other because we cannot do it alone. We're not meant to do it alone, and we need each other. But if we always try to be the other person, in the way of we're not good at those things, so we're going to focus on what we focus on grows. So I've really started shifting and understanding more that if I can really fully be who I am authentically and be good at it, know myself, understand myself, and also understand that, I'm not so good at those things. So I need someone else that is really good at those things or being that way. Not always necessarily practical or physical things, but that person thinks like that. I don't think like that. And that is what I need in my life right now. And I think Father just created that because, we need each other. If we would get really good at the other things too and be that whole person, Which, I mean, of course you need to, he has created you to be whole, and we don't, you know, when you go into marriage, don't go into marriage if you're not, you know, because you're so needy, and you know, in perspective, obviously, in context, what I'm talking about now. But yeah, what you focus on grows, and if we always focus not on what we are created to be.
Yeah.
So anyway, don't know if that made sense.
And when you work at development in the area that's a strength, you actually develop 5 times faster than the people around you. When you develop in the area of limitation or weakness in another sense, you barely develop at all. And so, you know, if I develop things around a skill set around detailed and accuracy and systematic fact finding, I'm going to grow really quickly, be able to comprehend. You know, I always use the example, I'll walk into a room, 10 pictures on the wall, 9 are straight, 1 is crooked, I'll see the crooked one right away. So I can develop and build skill sets around that a lot quicker than, say, the communication side. Again, I don't mind if someone has they say, hey, you might say, hey, what about this though? But this is just kind of how I've processed it and seen and recommend. Don't hide out and say, this is who I am and I'm staying here. You know, have different experiences, explore the world, explore potential, and get out there and impact lives. But then as much as you can, design your workplace, what you're involved in, and then pull other people in who are really good at the other things.
Yeah, no, I think that's very, very, very good. And you're saying, obviously, you know, we don't have any say into what families we're born into, what culture we raised in, and all that stuff. Do you find that? Do you find that that personalities might change because people experience different things? Like so, if, for example, if I've been raised in a certain culture, but now all of a sudden I am experiencing another culture, and now I'm like, wow, this is speaking to me more than what I've grown up in. How much of it is like embedded in your DNA, and how much of your external determines your true identity?
Yeah. So people debate that back and forth. For me, personality is a leg of your identity. So your personality is not your full identity. It's only a piece. It's part of your expression to the world. So I believe your identity is much bigger. Secondly, a lot of times you'll find you can be a little different depending on the situation, because we try to fit what's expected or needed in the situation. But I feel like from what I've seen and experienced, that you kind of have an anchor that so for me, my anchor is a high C. In the family, I'll shift more CD. In business, I'll go CS. I'm more figuring out, what does my client need? What does my customer need? Or on the leadership team, what does everyone else want? I don't want to be so decisive. But when it comes to my family, I'm more of a driver, decisive, and things like that. And so you can find a shift, but a lot of times I find people don't really go way out of whack or completely change, because it's kind of an innate skill set that they're born with. You know, I process information very well. I'm systematic in everything I do. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how I think and process. And that just is what's there. And so although I try to shift what's needed in situations, I still always have that underlying thing that kind of comes through. So that's what I found up until this point. You know, of course, I'm always trying to be accurate, so I may find something else in the future. I'm open to change, but this is from all my research and practical application and speaking to other people. That's kind of what I've seen come out. So
makes a lot of sense.
The only time I've seen a shift is it's not an actual shift. It's when people have been allowed to embrace what they felt was in there all the time, what fathers put in there, and they realized, you know, you know, I have people who are I personalities, and they were always told you're too talkative and you're too this and too that, and they felt bad about it, and so they never wanted to embrace that side. They're like, that's negative, this is weak, it's too flaky and whatever. But when they've been allowed to uncover and have dignity and honor in that space, that's the only time I've really seen people shift and be like, oh yeah, you know what, I can own this now because I have the freedom.
So more because of trauma now they become
more
somebody
because
else.
of trauma, or because they felt other people convinced them away from what they always felt inside. And to be honest, when you embrace that, it's when you embrace that trueness, it energizes you, because suddenly that your all that energy is going to, it's not being drained now on this, like, I'm wrong, I'm trying to be somewhere else. So even in ministry, like for so long, I felt like I needed to be mainly a speaker, but that is, I needed to be on the platform and preach, because that's what was accurate to what God was calling me to, but it wasn't. And I always had this internal struggle. Like, I'm a strategist, I'm into building things and creating resources, and I'm trying to get out here and speak. And that only like limits me and drains me. And when I could embrace and say, okay, yes, I speak, but my main space is in creating these strategic connections, building and putting strategies in place for the kingdom. And I don't have to, my only expression is not the platform and communicating and advancing ideas. That freed me up to actually be more productive in life and in the kingdom. So then just quickly, just in workflow, this is, or relationships or whatever, this is the best way to put things together. So you have the creator, the D, which is the visionary. They see the big picture. They're looking at the blank canvas and they're seeing all that could be built and put in there. They begin to talk with the advancers and the eyes, and they're all dreaming and brainstorming big picture. They're like, what could we do? How can we build this? When they come up with an idea, the creators and the advancers begin to communicate that. You know, they're the ones born to convince, persuade, communicate. So whether to the organization, to the rest of the ministry, to the people around you, the rest of the team, the eyes are the ones who are really good at going out and saying, hey, this is what we're thinking, this is what we're doing, this is what we're planning. But before you would release a product or do something, yesterday we were talking about a birthday party where everyone had these ideas for this great party, but the refiner, the C's were saying, hey, what about the parking? Can we fit people in here? What about all the potential problems? So if I'm a C, I'm in the brainstorming visionary meeting, I have to sit and be quiet, or else I red flag every potential idea. So the D's and the I's are like, what about this? What about that? What about this? And they get super frustrated, and all the flow is killed if I'm raising my hand and saying, that won't work. That won't work. What about this? What about that? And so I wait for them to come up with the idea. They send it to the refiner. I pick out, or the C, the refiner picks out the potential problems and says, well, you know, it may not work to have the meeting here because of parking, or the building's not big enough, or it may rain. The idea is sent back to the creators and advancers to adjust and alleviate the problems. And then it's given to the S, because they like to execute. They want the steps to put it in play. Put the chairs here, put the food over there, park cars over here, X, Y, and Z. So even if you think business or leadership teams are people you're communicating to, or your family, if you have the S personality in the visionary or the brainstorming thing, and you're talking about everything you could do and all the potential, they'll be overwhelmed and shut down, and they'll just be completely deflated. So they actually don't want to be there. If you have the C's and the refiners in the brainstorming meeting, they have to sit and be quiet and wait, or else the red flags will kill off all the ideation and the processing, and only later bring them in to refine it. And you know, that'll keep things going, and give it to the I's and let them communicate to the team and to everybody, because the I personality, the advancer, they create experience. So they'll communicate your idea, and they'll, well, if we do this, if we go out and we evangelize on the streets, you know how this person will get healed and this person will get saved and all this. They create the experience. Where if I communicate information, if you have not noticed, and details and bullet points. And that doesn't create an experience for anybody. It just gives them a lot of knowledge. But the advancers, they actually create feelings around what they're sharing. And so again, you have the visionary, the creator, send it to the advancer to communicate it, agree on the big picture, let the refiner refine it, fix any potential problems, and then have the executors execute. And finally, to wrap it off, when I first meet somebody, they could be a D, I, S, or C. When I first meet somebody, what do you think is the best style to approach a new relationship or a new person I'm meeting in? Any thoughts? So if I'm meeting Nikki for the first time, I'm going to want to come with either the D, I, S, or C and begin communicating in that style until I understand what style he is. What should I approach? What's the best way? Anybody have a guess?
I would say I think I'd say I.
Good thought. Almost, not quite.
I was doubting between I and S.
Yeah. The S. They're the most patient. They're the most relaxed. They're the most steady. And so if I come into a situation and I'm an I and I'm over talkative and excited, the C's, the D's, they might check out and you lose them. If I come in as a C, I give too much information. The I's are definitely checking out. The D may not have time for it. If I come in as a D, I'm too strong for everybody. So first come in as an S, and as soon as I hear what they're talking, then I shift my style into their style. Another thing just to recognize, 69% of the population has S in them. That's a high percentage. So if you're leading your organization or your team and you're always changing things and shifting and back and forth and all over the place and not creating connection, you're actually missing a large percentage of people who cannot fit in. 11% have I, 17% C, and 3% are D. So again, as you meet somebody new, an influencer, a business potential, client potential, whatever it is, just come in that friendly, listening type, hear where they're coming from, and if there's something other than an S, if they're talking about being accurate, getting things done, shift over a little more information. They're talking about how things could be fun and let's do this and whatever, and they're talkative, shift there. If they're talking about the bottom line and getting the task accomplished as quickly as possible, getting results, shift there. So that's it. Any thoughts or questions before we go?
Jason, can I ask, on yesterday when we had this, and I think Esther was the only one that here, I asked the question about, oh, well, I don't remember the question, but we were talking about my frustration, I guess, with talking to the Lord and getting answers and having to wait and that kind of stuff. And so I don't know that I asked it right, but your answer was really good. And I wish you would just maybe repeat it, because what you said was, what I caught, what I remembered was you said, God made us the way he made us, and so he knows our personalities. He knows how we hear. He knows how we receive, just like you figured out about your kids. And so I think you suggested that I adjust, and I don't remember exactly what you said, that I adjust the way I receive information from him. I think that's what you said. I'm not sure. So if you could address that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, so Cynthia had mentioned how, she's more of an S personality, and she feels like she doesn't always hear the next step from Father. And we just talked about how a lot of times he's speaking in our style, and you know, we think it's ourselves speaking, and so we don't embrace it. And maybe S, you want to share a little more on this as well. But for me, because I'm a thinker and I think systematically, I've realized that a lot of my thoughts are actually, you know, Father speaking to me, and not just my thoughts. And so I'm actually hearing more than I thought I hear. And just being able to embrace that, because of him being a good father, he will communicate. If we look at Moses, I used him as an example, and he was more of a C personality, wanting more information. When he went to the burning bush, Father gave him a burning bush that caught his attention. He spoke to him out of that. And then it was like, well, you know, am I really being sent? Well, here, put your hand in your cloak. It came out leprous. Okay, put it back, came out healed. But who's really going to, you know, who's sending me? Well, throw your staff down, became a serpent. Okay, pick it back up. The staff. Well, who is, you know, I can't speak. Well, Aaron will be your voice. Well, who is really sending me? You know, Father put up with his questions and needing more information for a while. After five or six times, you know, he was, all right, enough. Now just go and do it. But it wasn't like he said, I expect you, you know, he didn't completely throw his style out and just become frustrated with Moses there. So do you want to add anything to that, S?
Yeah, I think that's really what I was saying yesterday, is that out of him being our father, and that he is a good father, wouldn't he communicate to us in a way that we can receive, just out of his nature and out of his goodness? And then it is, I don't know if it's like statistically, I'm not into the details. So, but I think I have learned through all my studying that you don't necessarily, something that is natural to you in your giftings and talents and stuff, you don't always recognize that because it's your nature. And so when you have to say something about some good things about yourself, often most people have to think. And so there are, you know, exercises that we do in life coaching and different things. And then you go and ask other people what they say about you. You have a coach to highlight and to bring to the forefront those things that you don't really recognize. Why? Because that's who you are. That is your nature. And so to you, that's super normal. But you would maybe not say, oh, actually, that is my gifting, or actually, that is, you know, I am very good at that or talented at that. You know, and so that's what I was saying to Cynthia. It's like, you know, him being a good father, I'm sure he would just want to speak to you how you can receive, but maybe because that's how you think and who you are, you don't hear him, because you're so used to hearing in the other way, because that's so different of who you are. And so you pick up on that. However, it's harder to receive sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
Like, I'm a thinker, I'm a C, so a lot of my thoughts are thoughts from him. Well, an I personality, which talks, and they kind of hear what they're saying to hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
You know, Father could be speaking, giving you, a lot of times you'll find you'll be saying things and be like, ooh, you know, I didn't think of this before. But you know, Father speaking through you, giving you words, Holy Spirit speaking through you. And so just recognizing, hey, just because it's in my style, I don't believe that Father God is always going to come and speak to you completely differently, but he's going to speak in a way that you understand. I mean, if we look at Jesus, when he was walking on earth, he used stories that everybody understood. And I actually heard that the parables that he taught were parables that were used by other people. So they weren't original to himself either. And so sometimes we think, you know, Father's going to come and just, he's always stretching me and making me outside and I don't understand. And There's a guy by the name of Brian Orm. He has this quote. He says, "We are the children of God, not the adults of God." And so would not Father God speak in a language that is easy for us to hear? And wouldn't he make it easy for us to communicate with him? And so just in light of our style, I believe he's speaking to you a lot inside of your style. Again, don't ever put anything inside of a box. It doesn't mean he won't speak outside of your style, but I think a lot of it's right there. We're hearing it, we're feeling it. We're not necessarily always perceiving it because we feel like it's ourself, or, you know, whatever. It's us speaking, but it's actually Father speaking through our style to us. So.
Yeah, and a lot of that I also learned just in my own parenting, and you know, not everyone is there, not everyone has kids, but I'm sure we can imagine that if you would have your own kids and you say something, I want them to know what I'm saying. I want them to understand where I come from.
I'm not
I
trying to
want
make
them
it as
to,
difficult as possible.
you know, I don't want, I'm going to make it like as much as I can, you know, which sometimes that's still very much misunderstood, you know. But like just that desire, where the place where that comes from, you know, his goodness and his who he is in his nature. Yeah, just that's been such a revelation to me in my relationship with him, you know, and in my walk with him. That I'm still like, wow, you are so good, you know. You want to be found. You want to, oh, yeah. And you're
So,
everywhere.
so as a small synopsis, a lot of times the Lord, he's talking to me all the time. So like what you said, Esther, my frustration is I guess because I feel like maybe I'm looking for something other than what I'm already hearing.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's like I'm hearing stuff all the time and I write it down, but at the same time, I'm always questioning it because it feels like it's just coming from me. It's just my normal outflow of all of this stuff. And so I'm just like, that just really just can't be God. It needs to be like a boom, bang. This is God thing. So that's why it was so fascinating to me when you said that yesterday. And I was like, okay, maybe I can look at things differently. And then to go back to something that you said, Pastor Nikki, the more I listen to these relationship things and with the personalities growing up, everything about my personality to everybody, everywhere I went was totally 100% wrong. So I lived my life to try to be a people pleaser and turn it around and so I could fit. And so in trying to fit, I still didn't fit. And so I'm finding that as I go along, that some of these things were really not my personality. They were just things that I created. It was a created persona to fit in. And so, like Esther was saying, as you grow in Christ and as you learn certain things and you put yourself in the right tribe, in the right place with the right people where you're celebrated and not tolerated and all the things that we learn, then you can really see who you are, how God made you, and then you can appreciate it and realize that it's okay to be who you are because this is how God made you. And so you don't have to try to do or be something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Celia just put a question in chat and said, how will Father speak to an S? Can you give an example of how he would speak? Maybe.
Yeah. So Cynthia, would you be able to help us with that? Or maybe Christo, since you guys identified with the S personality, how do you feel or how have you had Father speak to you? Celia is asking, you know, how have you received? It may not be exactly the same,
No.
but could you guys give some examples where you felt Father speak to in your style, or maybe now that you know something different, you could go back and say, I thought this was myself, but it's actually Father speaking.
Well, for me, I am all in my head all the time. I can live there. It's a nice place. It's a safe place. I am very happy there, and I don't want to come out. So when I'm there, I'm writing. I have journals and notebooks and pens and paper, and I can literally sit down in the quiet for 3 or 4 hours and just write and listen and pray and just do that. And so in that time period, there are things that are coming to me. And there are so many things that are coming to me. I just think it's just me because I have been with myself all of my life. And so I'm used to that. I'm used to all of this information coming from wherever it's coming from. And so going back to the part of not embracing that, I really just sat it to the side and said, that's just that part of my brain that just does that, and I sit it there. And so, if something is said to me prophetically, or if something is discovered in the Word, it generally doesn't feel new to me. I'll just go, oh, okay. Well, let me just give you a prime example. I was talking to the Lord about. Well, the bishop had said to me in one of our conversations, he said, "You're a preacher." And I'm thinking to myself, he must have got the wrong Zoom call, because there's certainly no way that, it's not something that I feel like I can do it, but it's not something that would be high on my list of things to do. So being my spiritual father, I accepted it. I accept all that he said, but I had to be honest and say, I knew that what he was saying was true about me. I've known that about my life, all of my life, but I had pushed it off to the side. So just to give you an example of how he speaks to me, as a seer, I see. So I write in my journal, and I was literally in the bathroom washing my face, and I had asked the Lord a question. Okay, he told me I'm this, 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 and this. How am I going to do that? And he said, I already told you. So as I'm washing my face, I actually see a journal entry from last year. And I go back and I find it and I read it, and all of the instructions are right there. And so I don't know if anybody else operates like that. It's not something that you share because you always think, well, you're crazy and that's it. But that's how God does it for me. And so it helped me to see, okay, he was talking to you. You weren't crazy. You weren't, this really, really, truly was him. And it wasn't you making up something out of your own spirit. It's actually him talking to you. So that's how a lot of times it happens for me.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And it could come through relationships, Celia. It could. I'll give another example. Again, it's not one or the other. We can all have these different experiences, but for like an I personality, they tend to have more daydreams. They are envisioning great things, and they can be like, oh, that's just my imagination. Well, the imagination is part of what Father put inside of you, and so a lot of the daydreams could be Father speaking to an I, and so I don't know, Christo, if you had anything maybe from an S type of personality, how you've experienced, or where you found.
What did I mention I was the S, or did you just really accurately assign that one to me? I don't know. But,
you had said in the beginning that you thought you were some S and
true.
I in there.
Okay, all right, yeah. Well, anyway, you would have known anyway, wouldn't you? No, but I think yeah, it's interesting because it can be multiple ways. Because I just during this whole everything you're touching on, and I feel very between those two, and that can be a little bit confusing in understanding yourself if you feel like you're very close to being 50-50 between two. So I recognize two sides of that very much. Mm-hmm. But I would say, just referring to how Father speaks, I also really recognize that can be multiple ways because of having those two. So, for instance, because I'm a thinker also, I do have all these notes categories in my phone, and so I have categories for song ideas. I have categories for you know, something that I feel like he wants me to dive into on scripture, and it might just be one word. I have all these different, and I just everything that I'm thinking or that pops up, I write down. But then at the same time, more because of the I, what really works well with me is if I'm in conversation with someone or I'm busy doing something, you know, even whether it's speaking or leading worship, in the moment, because of what I'm doing, because I'm engaged with someone, he can speak to me. So when people ask me questions, Father starts speaking. So that it's very double in that sense.
Yeah, that's good, Chris. I appreciate that. And there's something about, I should highlight about the S is they like a close, smaller group or one-on-one conversation, and they can still flow. Where an I is kind of more the bigger group, center of attention, speaker, performer, built kind of for the fame side. And so, Acelia, I want to highlight that because even in your S, you could be talking to a singular person like Christo was mentioning, or a small group of friends, and Father could be speaking to you through that conversation, like Christo was saying. And so those little pieces, just another thing, you know, the S is not necessarily the big picture visionary 10 years out, always looking at the big picture. And you could hear a lot of people say, yeah, what's the big vision that God's putting before you? And you're like, well, I don't know, you know, he's not showing me the big picture. But you may internally have this next step, you know, this feeling of this is the next step, this is the next, and it may feel, oh, it's too small, it's too practical. But that Father, the S personality, being a practical executor step by step, there's a good chance he'll show you that next step, you know, that next small step. And it feels so natural and it feels too practical and too small that you may not embrace that's him speaking to you. So that's another area I'd just say, hey, you know, Krista's saying, I have journals, I have ideas, I have things written down, I have things I've spoken. Cynthia said, I have journal written out. And it's just these little processes, these little things that are dropped and may not seem like much when you look at the big picture. But when you look at, hey, if I just do it, he's just taking the next half step even, and he's showing you and just bringing you along in your relationship in that. So I hope that helps.
Yes,
Yeah.
cool. I'm not being seen because it's late.
Yeah, no problem.
But that really helped a lot because, you know, it is just that sometimes yes, it's very one step and then just silence and then the next step. And then other people now understand for the first time that he actually speaks in your style, because I will get overwhelmed when there's people oh, I have the whole year all planned out, know exactly what to do. And this is what he says, and oh Lord, I just know this step. And then, okay, what is the next thing? And I just don't know. Yes, I will write and there will be stuff, but you will just really this one and this one and this one. So this is really, thank you. This is very good.
Excellent.
Another
Yeah.
thing, and I'm borrowing this from someone else that I've heard in their prophetic journey and in your walk with the Lord, instead of always saying, oh, that's probably not God, and it's probably my own ideas and my thoughts and whatever. What if we would start saying, it might be me, but it's probably God?
Yeah.
Because we brush off everything so quickly because we just think it's us, and we don't look at ourselves in his image and his likeness, that new creation we are, because we are born again. So we don't have that past nature anymore, but we still view ourselves in that past nature. And so, yes, it might be me, but it's probably God speaking to me, through me, in every way possible. I mean, he speaks through the flowers and the trees. He speaks through everything, you know, in so many ways. This is not a one cut. He speaks for everybody. And I heard this person say, and I'm like, wow, that can change your whole perspective, because if you think that is God speaking to you, you will stop and pay attention. But if you think it's you, let's move on. It's just me, And
That's right.
so that changed for me. That's how I'm looking at everything. And besides that, I in my personality, I am flow, I am spontaneous, I bubble. In my prophetic, who I am as a prophet, I'm a Nabi. So but not everybody is like that. And God created you like you. And so, hey, it might be me, but that in a safe environment, in a spiritual family, you can test words, you can practice, you can, but it might be me, but hey, it's probably God. And if I view it like that, oh my words, he's been speaking like for 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
Or
you don't always have to wait for that safe environment as well. I mean, it's just that I'm born again, I'm new, I now have the mind of Christ. The New Testament says we have the mind of Christ. And so even if it is you, if you have the mind of Christ and he's giving you his thoughts and he's speaking to you and through you, I mean, yeah, why not go for it and embrace it and just walk the journey with him. Remember, he's a good father who is smiling on us, who's drawing us close and wants to walk with us. And so he's not looking, are you getting it right or wrong? And do I need to correct everything? He's looking like, hey, how can I express more of life to you? How can I communicate more to you? How can I make more possibilities open to you? And so instead of walking with this weight and heaviness, just begin to walk with this freedom and expectation and embracing and this ability to flow and listen and have life and life more abundantly and the fullness of it. So.
Amen.
Cool. Everyone
3
good?
o'clock, baby.
Yep.
3 o'clock or 11
or 12 for some people. I don't know.
boy.
Where are you guys at? 12? Midnight?
12, yeah.
Celia too. Celia too.
Celia's
Yes.
midnight as well.
Wow.
Well, I
You guys
appreciate
are awesome.
you guys making time, coming on, interacting, sharing your pieces as well. I thank you. Appreciate it. So
And I just thought of it when Krista was saying, and my mind went blank about what he was saying, but that, when you said the I and the S, or this S and the I, and it can be confusing. This, of course, is more a general thing. Now, my husband does have some certification and has the ability to actually do it for you personally, if you would want to, if anybody would want to ever, or, if you have specific questions or whatever that pertain to you, you can always message him or ask him personally, because of course we're touching on all of them and in a pretty general way, but there are tests you can do where you can really see the percentage of each and how that works in different environments, and it's really interesting to understand that about yourself.
and again, it's not a box. So Krista, you find
Right.
yourself between an I and an S. Don't say, well, I need to act this way or that way. It's just, hey, this is some strengths I can tap into and really produce into the world, or this is what I bring to the table in relationships, and it just flows naturally, and just being able to own that and embrace it. That's all it's for. So, yeah. All right, guys.
Yeah. Well, I also just wanted to really thank you. I really just these 2 hours, but yeah, it's been really good what you're sharing and just how you're explaining stuff. I'm really enjoying it. Thanks a lot.
Hey, you're welcome. My pleasure. You're welcome, Celia. All right.